Hello, everyone, and welcome to everyone that's tuning in live today for another free Grow Nebraska webinar. Of course, today's topic is Facebook 202, understanding analytics and how to utilize them for your best ROI. So feel free to pop a hello in the chat. And of course, as we go through, if you have any questions, be sure to pop them in the chat and our presenter will answer them at the end or as we go. So let's go ahead and get started with my little intro. A huge shout out to Center for Rule of Affairs for sponsoring not just one, but multiple of our Grow Nebraska webinars. Of course, without them, without our viewers, and without our presenters, none of these would be possible. And we're so grateful to get to work with them. So be sure to visit cfra.org for more information about what they can do for you and your business. Our featured sponsor is Eunice Hospitality. We're super grateful to be located on the Eunice campus here in Kearney, and we actually have our Market Tech conference at the Eunice Convention Center, and we've been so grateful to get to work with them and be able to utilize their space that they offer down here, and they're actually expanding it quite large. So if you ever come to Kearney, you'll see a lot of new buildings down here, and it's super awesome how they're growing Kearney. Our featured member is the Medina Street Vault. They joined Grow Nebraska in 2021. So if you're in their area, we definitely highly recommend that you go and get some coffee. I've yet to try it, but I have heard that it's delicious. So be sure to go check them out. And then today's presenter is Alyssa with Pin and Post. I actually get to work with Alyssa a lot and I love her and she's awesome. So I'm excited to hear her tips today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share and let Alyssa hop on.
There we go. Get my camera going. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Let me share my screen. That's always the biggest challenge. There we go. How's that looking, Zoe?
Beautiful.
Good. Well, thanks, Zoe. Am I okay to get started?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, Zoe always says such nice things about me, so that's very sweet. Hello. Thank you guys so much for coming today. If you're looking for Facebook 202, understanding the analytics and how to use them for your best ROI, you're in the right place. I know some of you are continuing to hop on, so please feel free to join whenever you can, but let's go ahead and get started. So today we'll be touching on a variety of different things, but mainly really looking at how to understand analytics, how to know what adjustments to make to ads, understanding what successful ads might look like, and really just additional recommendations of things that I wish I would have known prior to running my first ad. So just a quick quote from one of my favorite Facebook gurus, Marnie Smith: the best Facebook ads look and feel as relevant as the post from your friends. That to me just spoke volumes, and I feel like it made things kind of click in terms of what kind of copy and creative that I needed to attract the right clientele to my ads. So to get started, I just want to introduce myself. As Zoe mentioned, my name's Alyssa Wyant. First and foremost, I'm a wife and a mother, and secondly, the owner of Pen and Post. I work with businesses to help leverage themselves, whether they're a big business, a small business. We work with them to identify copywriting needs, marketing, social media, or generally even just looking at kind of their organizational processes and seeing how to make things more efficient for them. I've been in marketing for the last decade in a variety of different fields, including things like higher education, healthcare, and retail. I hold a master's degree in journalism and mass communications with a specialization in integrated media. All of that is really to say that I love not only the creative side of things like Facebook ads, but also that analytical side. I actually taught at the University of Nebraska at Kearney for about 5 or 6 years, a social media class that focused on the history and then how to leverage it in today's world. So all of this to say, I am a qualified presenter, that I do kind of know the ins and outs of this. So let's get started. So just a few things that if you haven't already decided maybe to advertise on Facebook, a couple things to consider with these next few facts. Facebook has 1.98 billion active users and sees a 3% increase of users year over year. Facebook is the third most downloaded app. It is literally on probably everyone's phones, right in their pocket, their purse, wherever they keep that phone, it's right there. And finally, people spend 33 minutes daily on Facebook. Now, when we think of that in terms of how long we have to get in front of them, that's really long. That's longer than the average person typically spends in one store. So just thinking about how many times we have to get in front of them is key. So in simpler terms, in advertising, all of those facts means that we have 2 billion people in our audience. We live in that purse or pocket or wherever they keep their phone, and we have 33 whole minutes to make an impression on them and actually convert them into being our customer. So if you haven't already, I'd really encourage you to go back and watch the recorded version of Facebook 101 that I did with Grow Nebraska a few months ago. In this specific webinar, we really covered how to create Facebook ads, what ads maybe you should be using, what objective options there are, and how to target really your ideal customer in those demographics. So if you haven't already checked that out, please be sure to go back and look at that one, get comfortable with that, and then you can move into Facebook 102, or I'm sorry, 202, as we discuss kind of the analytical side of it. So if you have set up your ads and maybe you've ran a few, but you just aren't seeing quality conversions or maybe the clicks you want, we're going to go over how to overcome that and change up your ads so it's effective for your objectives. So metrics become so important in terms of ads because it allows advertisers to set specific goals and calculate the ROI of your ads. This in turn not only would help highlight the success of your campaign, but then you can use these metrics to gain insight on how Facebook users are really interacting with your ads, what works for you and your business, and what improvements that you can make moving forward. So let's break down a few common metrics that we see in Facebook. I'm sure some of these probably look familiar to you. You've probably seen them, maybe you've skimmed over them, maybe you've researched what they mean, but maybe you don't really understand how to use them. So the concepts we're going to look at are CPC, CTR, CPM, and reach. So CPC stands for cost per click. In my opinion, this is probably the metric that I'm paying the closest attention to and how it coincides with the click-through rate. Cost per click is really going to tell me how much it cost me to get someone to actually click on my ad. In an ideal world, we would see this be in cents. So keep that in mind if you're looking at like what is a good cost per click in Facebook. I would consider it anything in cents. When we start getting and paying dollar amounts, that is kind of high. And typically Facebook advertising is fairly cheap and inexpensive depending on the industry and target that you're trying to reach. Now, all of that is to say that if your target is very narrow, you're going to have a higher cost per click because you're not able to reach as many people. To calculate that cost per click of an ad, you would take your advertising cost divided by the total number of clicks that you've received. So if you have a higher click-through rate, that means you're going to have a lower cost per click. If you're having maybe issues with the cost per click being high, I would suggest maybe taking a look at how that creative looks and how you can serve your consumer. Make sure that you're staying relevant to your customer, not to who you think maybe your customer should be, or maybe who you would like your customer to be, but who actually is buying the products or seeking out your services, making sure that that ad looks and feels relevant to them. As I mentioned in the quote that we started with, we want that to be as organic and feel as normal as a post from a friend. So click-through rate, or CTR, stands for click-through rate. This is configured by dividing clicks by how many people saw your ad, or what we would consider maybe impressions or reach. To prevent a drop in click-through rate, think about your audience and consider adding interests or maybe different demographics that may be a better fit. Maybe you have selected like people that are interested in yoga. But that's not really your clientele. Maybe your clientele is actually more interested in CrossFit. Those are two different things that can really change an ad just based on the interest that you selected when you set out your targeting. Your issue, again, maybe that you're in front of people, but they're not your people. So as a creative mind, I always love images that are animated or have some kind of motion behind it. However, if you're looking to increase your click-through rate, still images are still performing better across the board. So if you maybe had an animated ad that didn't do very well, maybe consider maybe changing it up to a still image. If you're having issues with performance, besides changing out to a still image or getting in front of the right group, another option would be to edit your headline. That's typically the very first thing that a viewer will read when they see your ad. Again, make sure it's relevant to your audience. Studies have shown that a headline that really meshes well with your audience increases the click-through rate by 10%, which that's a huge increase in terms of social media and the time that we spend on these ads. So I added in link clicks. So you know what you should be looking for when you go into a Facebook ad in the analytics side of the ad, Facebook, or the ads manager. So link click is probably the simplest metric Facebook has, and it literally means how many people clicked on your ad. That's what that's looking for. Reach is also another Facebook term. Typically, when we see this in other platforms or maybe in a media buying kit, we would see something called impressions or opportunities in the marketing world. Regardless, your reach is how many people your ad was shown to, how many opportunities that you had to make that first impression. So when you are in Facebook, you're going to see something that looks like this. I realize this is small. You'll find all of this information in the ad center. And when you click on an ad, you're going to see the link clicks, the reach, the cost per click, all on that main dashboard. Along with that, you're going to see who engaged with your post. And the post engagement on Facebook is referring to the total number of actions people took involving your post. I always was really confused by what the difference was between post engagement versus post reactions. So post engagement is any type of engagement that they took. That includes like liking, reacting, commenting, sharing, claiming an offer, clicking the link, and so on. So typically when people see posts that are relevant to them, they're more likely to interact. And then the post reactions would be like they're liking it, they're loving it, they're I think you can do like sad, caring, I'm trying to remember some of those other emojis that you can do. But that is what the post reaction is. So when we talk in terms of post reaction, that is purely those that are leaving a reaction to your things of your ad that they associate that with. Link clicks, they're clicking it. Post shares, they're obviously sharing the entire ad with their followers. So the biggest thing to remember in terms of a conversion rate is that social media platforms want to make sure that users are having a great experience on their site. Displaying low quality ads aren't going to achieve that, but ads with high engagement rates are more likely to fit that great experience bill that some of the platforms are looking for. Finally, engagement is something I would consider too when evaluating the success of a campaign. So did our followers, our target audience, actually like the ads? Did they interact, share, or comment? They may have not converted this time, but we actually got them to engage. And that's what we want to do with that ad. That's typically the first point of entry when we look at like a customer line and what that buying process and what that looks like. The average click-through rate for your paid social campaign is important because it tells us about the ad quality. The more people who view your ad and actually click the link, the more relevant and engaging that ad is. Plus, this is probably what you or maybe your boss is going to probably ask for, maybe want to see, because that means that you're utilizing that budget that they set out for you. So when we think about that, these are probably three of the biggest things that I consider is the average click-through rate, how many people actually clicked, the conversion rate, because remember the conversion rate would also include kind of the bottom line of the return on investment, how many people saw your ad, how much you paid for that ad, what the click-through rate was, and then engagement from your audience, if you were relevant and kind of planting the seeds, so to speak, for that group. So finally, to conclude today's presentation, I always hope that after you hear me speak, that you go off and at least a step above from where I first started. So this is really a section that probably should have been titled like stuff I wish I would have known, which I put that in the subtitle. But these are really just general tips that I was having issues with, or maybe not understanding and having to take like a nosedive into social media advertising when I first started. So the first thing is comparing apples to apples. This seems like a no-brainer to most, but make sure that when you're actually evaluating ads and comparing how they perform side by side, that you're comparing apples to apples. And what I mean by that is your ads should have the same objective or goal when you're looking at them. I would not suggest comparing one objective of maybe website clicks to purchases. That is not comparing apples to apples. They're two different goals that we have set in mind. Even though those ads may look and feel the same, they're completely different objectives. Excuse me. So the other issue that I had was like, how do I get a higher click-through rate? Like all of my click-through rates are low. Something's wrong with my ads. This is such a tricky problem that took me a while to figure out. So to combat a low click-through rate, make sure you're looking at your targeting and creative and ensure that it's relevant to the audience that you're serving the ad to. Early on, we mentioned simple fixes like utilizing those still images instead of using animated images and changing out your headline. A great option is to utilize also, Facebook has an A and B testing feature to ensure to see kind of how your audience is responding to like different creative, different headlines. That would be a great option if you're kind of wanting to compare two ads. And again, comparing apples to apples, it's always interesting to see what ads are performing better, what ads you're seeing the most conversions from. But again, they have to be apples to apples when comparing. But that A and B testing feature is great. That's what that's there for, is to utilize and improve your ads. So the ads, I've been in so many different positions where we got a ton of clicks, we had a ton of impressions, but the ads just like were not converting. When your ads aren't converting, it can feel a lot. The best like analogy I think I have for it feels like a 4th of July when you're literally burning up your money. To combat ads that don't convert, check and see that you're following Facebook's best practices. And even though Facebook might have approved your ad, it just may not like it because it's not shown as much simply because Facebook doesn't like the ad. I'd suggest testing out ads that have worked well against your current ad. And remember that comparing apples to apples is key. But oftentimes when we see ads that aren't converting, it's because they maybe aren't relevant. You're not reaching the right target audience. It could be for a variety of reasons, but taking out one thing at a time and seeing if it makes the change is really worth it, because then you're only moving one element out of the ad. I hope that makes sense in terms of maybe you go in and you change one thing in your demographic. That's great. And then you would go in and see if that ad would work. If not, you put that back in, change the next element. Then you're not taking off 3 or 4 different items, trying to change it up and have it kind of not really understand why it's going to change. And finally, the biggest thing, I think, I had a low number of impressions. Early on in my career, I had this issue identifying why I was having such a hard time actually getting in front of the audience. Really, there could be 3 potential reasons that you're seeing those low impressions. One, your audience is just way too narrow and you need to revisit and broaden it. When I worked in higher education, doing the marketing side of it, I would have professors that would come to me and be like, you know what, we need to target these specific kind of scientists to get in front of this group for this graduate program because they would convert easily. But in reality, what was actually happening with our customers was the science and math people that were teaching more of the STEM were actually our people. So if I was only targeting that small area, I wasn't even reaching them. So we would broaden that kind of cast that net out wider into that bigger group. The second reason this could be happening is your ads are not set up to run very often. If you have advertised before, you know that you can set your ads to run at a specific time. Again, I did this in higher education with teachers. I thought because they were teaching, they probably weren't on Facebook between the hours of 8 and 5, and I was wrong. So your ads may not be set up to run very often. Maybe you've limited the time that people are working. Go in and take that off. Oftentimes, I think you'd be surprised how many people will just check Facebook throughout the day. And finally, 3, there might be something actually wrong with your ad. Again, it can go against Facebook's policies. We all know that Facebook has quite the plethora of different policies that are there. So if you think that's the case, look at their best practices and see where you may not be up to par. Make those changes in your ad, resubmit the ad, and see if it starts performing better. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. I always hope that after you hear me speak that you go off and are at least, again, a step of where I first started. So I hope this has been helpful, but please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as you have them. I'm going to throw my contact information up here too. If you have questions or want to talk further, or if you need any social media services, I'm always here for that as well. So that concludes the presentation, but feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A or the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. Hey, Amanda, it looks like we do have a question about how to use general analytics for Facebook posts. So some of the analytics for Facebook posts, it depends how you're using them or what your goal is. So, I mean, I don't know. Amanda, do you have an example of like some of the analytics that you're questioning on some of the Facebook posts that I can use? If you do, drop those in the chat for me and I can kind of talk through what that would maybe look like. I'm assuming maybe she means more of like how many people are seeing your posts, which oftentimes when we look at Facebook, it is definitely like a pay to play arena. So a lot of the organic posts are not going to show unless you're seeing that kind of engagement or interactions with your ad. Those are 2 big things, the shares, all of those different things. So whenever I consult with a company, one of the things that I tell them is make sure that your employees are your social media advocates. I've been in businesses where they don't want their employees to be on social media, but it's vital for the success of the organization if they're using social media to try to get the word out about something, if their employees are advocates, because that's free advertisement for them and they're expanding their growth, I guess, with different audiences. So if an employee of Grow shares a post, that post goes to all of their friends. That opens up to a whole new group of people that you wouldn't have had access to before. Amanda, I hope that answered your question. Let me know if you have more, please feel free to let me know. It looks like we have another, is there any data reports showing trends or historical information on a month-to-month basis? Pamela, I think I know what you're talking about. Are you wanting to pull reports kind of comparing trends as far as like what ads performed well? I guess I don't know for sure maybe what question you're asking, but you can pull reports as far as like you can actually set up automatic reports to go to you when ads are running. So if you wanted to get an update, like I used to run ads for gosh, probably 8 months out of the year. And it would be the same ad. We maybe would change up the creative throughout if it wasn't performing well. But I would send those to myself and then send those to my boss as well. So she would also get a copy and see kind of how it was performing and any comments that I had about it. As far as like showing trends, I think you could do that. You would probably have to specify what ads you're wanting to compare. But again, I'm really hesitant to have like Facebook pull that report. I would rather go in and analyze it myself because of the fact that I don't know if there's a way to specify for Facebook to compare objective to objective. So if you're not going to do that, you wouldn't be comparing those apples to apples through the report, but you could do it kind of just looking at those two ads. So, okay, great, Pamela. I'm glad that answered your question. Feel free to drop those. That's kind of this, I think this presentation was a little bit maybe harder for me to present on because there's so many different nuances of Facebook analytics. Amanda, is it more beneficial to use Facebook ads over others, Google, Instagram, etc.? So when we advertise on Facebook, Facebook actually acquired Instagram. So we can actually advertise on both platforms using the same budget. So I don't think that that's more beneficial. When we look at Google advertising, I like in the perfect maybe marketing mix, I would suggest doing not only Facebook ads, but Google ads as well. Google ads are those paid ads. I can actually show you what that would look like because this is going to be different. And I'm just going to type in for Nebraska and then I will share my screen. Excuse me. Okay. So if we look at, hopefully you can see my screen there. So if you look at this, when we talk in terms of Google ads, this probably isn't a great example. Let's just do MBA degrees. I'm just going to give you an example because I know this is going to have a lot of them. When it says sponsored at the top, this is going to be a paid ad. So these people are paying to be at the top of the page. Now, when we scroll down, this is what would be referred to as search engine optimization. These are polling based on Google's algorithm. It's going in and reading those websites. So this is happening more organically as like a Facebook post would, where this would be more like a Facebook ad. So I do think it's beneficial because what do most people do? The average user that doesn't know that these are paid ads is going to come down here and be like, oh, yep, career state, that's where I want to go and click on it. So I would definitely suggest having a mix of Facebook ads and this because you're in completely two different platforms. Not everybody's going to be on Facebook. Yes, there's quite a few of them, but we're still also missing out on some people that would maybe just go to Google. Amanda, hopefully that answered your question. Let me know if there's other questions that relate to that, but most of the time Google ads are really utilized heavily in marketing. The search engine optimization is something that we do to look at their website. There's certain things that you can do to leverage the search engine optimization. One of those things is Google really loves links outside. So if you're linking to another page that's relevant, and that's the key word, everything has got to be relevant on Facebook's SEO or it just does not work. It will lower your SEO score. But that's kind of a whole nother topic, but definitely something that can be utilized and something I would suggest doing if you have not only the dollars for it, but also the manpower, because it does require somebody to manage that. Which is where we come in. That's kind of the beauty of it, and why people hire people like myself is to run those types of things. But it's definitely beneficial for those that have it. Okay, what do you recommend for images on the ad? Organic photos or graphics? So a lot of the times I have always suggested to my clients, like, people want to see themselves and people want to see people they know in the ads. So one of the things I suggest is, like, the more organic and original your photo can be, the better. If you don't have it, a graphics is always a great way to fill those spaces. And I think a mix of the two gives you this really nice cohesive look that is kind of bringing in some maybe branding elements, but also bringing in some of that organic photographs. So I would suggest both. I don't think there's anything wrong with either of them, but the biggest thing is, just making sure that it is a picture that obviously is appropriate, but also highlights what you're wanting to get across. So if it's a product, that product is in the forefront of that. How long does it typically take to get an ad placed on Facebook? From submission to approval to appearing on Facebook? That's usually pretty a short process. So when I submit ads, I would say it takes a couple hours maybe. And I have it set up so it triggers an email to me. I actually get it on my Facebook notifications too, that you would go in and just mark that you want to get a notification and go from there. So hopefully that makes sense, but it's really quick. If you wanted to get one up today, it could be approved and running by 5 or 6 o'clock tonight. Is there something specific that you follow to stay up to date with social trends? I follow a lot of different things. So a lot of like advertising stuff that I follow, I really like Adweek. That's one that I follow a lot. Social Media Examiner is always a good one. And honestly, Facebook has a great learning platform. If you're ever curious about Facebook or confused on how to do something, Facebook's learning platform is really good, as long as you kind of know where to go. And somebody's asked that question before. A lot of it is forum based. So if someone's asked that question before, typically Facebook will come in and answer that question. But those are probably the main ones: Adweek, Social Media Examiner, and then a lot of the platforms, even Google does have that too. But all of them have some kind of like learning component with them that they've placed in there for you to kind of like read and study. So I do a lot of that. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any come through, but feel free to drop them. Sometimes I feel like this part of the webinars are always, I think, more meaningful. Like it's great to go over some of the stuff that's pretty traditional, but having those questions kind of helps, I think, everybody walk through the process together and understand kind of maybe some best practices that maybe we should all be using.
I'm back. Does anyone have any last questions for Alyssa? If not, we can wrap up. But yeah, I agree. I think this part is kind of nice where it's just like a chat, ask your questions, that your burning questions that you've been wanting answered. I don't see any others.
No problem. If you guys do have questions that you want to talk through, please feel free to email me. I'm always happy to answer anything.
Yes, and I will have her email in the recording email that will be sent out to everyone, even those that attended live. So if any questions arise after, don't worry, you'll have her email. So I will just go ahead and screen share and let it load quick. Okay, perfect. So thank you, Alyssa, for yet again presenting for Grow Nebraska. We really appreciate you and everything that you helped with the Grow Nebraska Foundation. And of course, thank you to all our live attendees and to those of you watching the recording. We hope you enjoy and are able to tune in live for the next one. Like I mentioned, Alyssa's contact email will be in the recording send out. So if any questions arise after, or to those of you watching the recording, you still will be able to get those questions answered. If you have any questions for me personally, you can contact me at zoe@grownebraska.org, or feel free to give our store a call, and any of the Grow Nebraska team members here in store would be happy to help you out. Oh, I lost my mouse for a second. Oh, but now it's loading. Bear with me, guys. I'm not sure what's happening. Give me 1 second. It looks like my laptop's reading. Sorry, guys, technical issues. Can't miss my last part. It's all our upcoming trainings. Okay. Get my slideshow pulled back up. Okay, so sorry, everyone. I don't know why my laptop just froze up. Okay, like I was mentioning before my slideshow wanted to freeze up, is we have some awesome upcoming trainings. Our next one is next Thursday on July 27th, and that one is with Daniel, and he will cover to certify or not to certify small and disadvantaged business certification options. And then on August 2nd is with our Google trainer, Maria Elena Duran, and she will cover how to manage your online presence. Both of these are live on our Grow Nebraska website, which recently was updated. It looks beautiful. So feel free to go to grownebraska.org, or you can scan this QR code and that will take you directly to the page. We also have our next few August trainings up. And if you are a Grow Nebraska member, we do have our member only training up as well for August. So be sure to check those out. And then save the date. Our Market Tech Conference date has been secured for February 29th of 2024. I know Alyssa was there last year and I think the year before, and she actually was one of the speakers at Market Tech, and I'm sure she'll be there this year. So we have not yet announced the speakers, but be sure to check out markettechconference.com for any new announcements. And of course, we'll have it on social media and I'm sure emails. So be on the lookout for those. And then feel free to leave us a Google review and let the Grow Nebraska Foundation let us know how we're doing. Reviews not only bring a smile to our face, but it shows everyone how great the Grow Nebraska Foundation is. And if you've tried anything from a Nebraska small business, I go recommend that you leave them a Google review, because I'm sure they'll be doing a little dance behind their laptop. So yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. And thanks again, Alyssa, and thanks to everyone that attended live.